Hello and welcome back. This is going to be a detective's look at Nero Wolfe, specifically why Nero Wolfe would love to play video games. And I have Jacob dressed up in the huntsman's outfit, or what's generally considered to be the traditional Sherlock Holmes garb, to look at that, and we'll look at London while I discuss this. So, in addition to that, at the end of the video, there's a mystery inside a Nero Wolfe mystery called the mystery book is called Black Orchids, and I think I've figured out the mystery within a mystery. There's no solution offered in the book, and for those of you who are Nero Wolfe fans, I will present what I think the solution is to that particular mystery, and you can let me know if you think I'm right or wrong in that regardless. Anyway, also, I just want to add this, that there's a certain associative property to fictional characters that in pretty much any sort of medium. The logic goes something like this. I like this character. I have this particular viewpoint. Therefore, this character must share that same viewpoint. Like I said, it's an associative property. I think everybody, to a greater or lesser extent, does this. Ooh, look at that view. With the different characters. It's kind of funny. I had a pretty spirited conversation on Twitter a while back about how Jacob Fry, what position Jacob Fry would take on the U.S. border security, building a wall, that sort of thing. And it's so distant from, where Jacob is. He's a fictional character in Victorian England. He has nothing to do with modern U.S. Politics. Yet, and I think that you can make an argument both for and against. And that's essentially what I'm going to be doing here on Nero Wolfe. I'm going to be making an argument for Nero Wolfe to like video games. So, for those of you unfamiliar with Nero Wolfe, he is a detective created by Rex Stout. He wrote quite a few Nero Wolfe novels. The novels are continued to be written by Robert Goldsborough. Has written them since the 70s. Took quite a bit of a break in the 90s, and then has returned to write a few of them. Some are good, some are not so good. But, he's still being written. So, Nero Wolfe is pretty much is a very lazy character. He does not like to work. He's rich enough that he can indulge his needs and wants. Basically, he has, two great passions in his life, and that's food and orchids. Likes breeding and growing orchids. That's his passion, and that kind of supplements the normal passions of a human being that most men have, I should say. So instead of the passion for attractive women or to get married or that sort of thing, he supplements it by having a passion for food and a passion for orchids. He is actually well aware of this act of his, as he will often refer to his, or on occasion, I should say, in the books, has referred to the orchids as his concubines. Regardless, that's where his passions are. He does not like to work at all, even though he's a first-rate detective. It's not his thing. He doesn't like work. So he has essentially hired another detective to be his eyes and ears out in the real world. His name's Archie Goodwin, and he has a memory, just unparalleled memory, can recite entire conversations that take place over a period of hours. He can remember it, perfectly. He's got a photographic memory in that regard. And so he goes out into the world and he investigates for Nero Wolfe, and Nero Wolfe, basically, he does three things. Outside of work, which he tries to avoid, And Archie Goodwin's job is to kind of push him into working. Oop, let's see if I can get up there. Okay. And when he needs to actually make money. But yes, he has three passions, and that is to, food and orchids, as I've said, and reading. And he does escape into his books, and that, I think, is one of the reasons I really like the characters, because that's the things I've done since I was a child myself, is escape into books and to read them. And gets really involved and lives out those books. In one of the novels, he's reading a book on snowflakes, and Archie Goodwin, observing him, says, well, he's actually, he's actually there. He's actually out there in the cold. He's freezing, and that's his connection to the outside world. And, that's, I am personally that way too with books. That's how I connect. I've been I've been to places I've never before imagined by reading books and going into these different worlds that I've never been to. Now, with video games, I do pretty much the same thing. So here I am, dressed like Sherlock Holmes, in Victorian London, wandering around on the roofs, exploring London. That's, what this game does. See if I can get... he's not... Hold on. There we go. So that's, what you do in video games, is you explore these new worlds, and you have challenges. And, quite frankly, I can see that's the reason I think Nero Wolfe would enjoy video games, even though he's notoriously didn't like a lot of new and burgeoning technology. He actually had a TV set that he turned on at least once a day for the sole purpose of getting irritated at it and turning it back off. But I think he would, get into these interactive worlds and explore these different areas. I think he would find a lot of the challenges fun for his intellect to look at and say, I wonder how I do that. I was in Jedi Fallen Order. I was spending quite a bit of time recently trying to get behind a locked door on the planet Ilum, I believe it's called. And, I spending, quite a bit of time just wandering around trying to find the secret of getting past that door. And I can easily see Nero Wolfe, turning it on, spending hours just in a single area of a game, working out its secrets for himself, and having that little sigh of satisfaction when he did work out these secrets. And so, that's why, at least from my point of view, and I'm making the argument that Nero Wolfe would really enjoy modern video games if, one, he were a real character, and two, he were alive now. The first Nero Wolfe book started in the 1930s. The original writer wrote it through the 1970s, so he really wasn't around for, these sort of interactive video games. But I think he would enjoy, visiting Victorian London. I think he would, any inaccuracies he would spot immediately and would, take great pleasure in pointing them out, and then enjoying, those sort of things. Also, let me pull up this screen here. So, it's in the progression log. It's back one. The Dreadful Crimes edition. I think Nero Wolfe would have enjoyed playing those, and I think he would have, just enjoyed looking at the mysteries, looking at how they worked, and then kind of would mock them for not being completely accurate, but then on the other hand would turn around and really enjoy them despite them not being accurate. So, for example, there's Dreadful Crime that I personally really enjoyed, where people attempted to kill the same guy 5 different times, and you're given a time limit on which poisons could have killed him, when the stabbing could have killed him, and it's exact to the minute, which is completely and totally unrealistic. But the fun of that particular mission is to kind of, sort out what order he was poisoned or stabbed or shot, and then, putting it into the proper sequence to work out who the murderer was based on the timing. And it's a lot of fun, and it's something I think that Nero Wolfe's analytical mind would have had a blast playing. And, you know, in addition to that, you know, I am not as athletic as Jacob here. Nero Wolfe certainly isn't as athletic as Jacob, but he could pretty much say, yep, I was running around London the other day. And, you know, you can say, hey, all these physical activities, I do them all the time in video games. And I think that's why he would really appreciate and like them. So, you know, we'll look out over there. And I did promise a solution for black orchids. So a bit of explanation is required. And I think, well, first off, I'm pretty much done making the case that Nero Wolfe would have liked murder mysteries. I'm going to do a little bit of swinging through London while I explain black orchids. Or, not really swinging. I have been playing Spider-Man recently too, so that's why I said swinging. So, Black Orchids was a novel released in, 1940s, I think. And technically speaking, it's two novellas, or short novels, put together. Neither of them are really connected, except for both contain black orchids in them. The first novella explains how Nero Wolfe got these hybrids, orchids that were black, which is, you know, which, you know, it doesn't occur naturally. And, you know, it's kind of how he went through the process of getting those things. It's a pretty interesting mystery. The second one is the one that presents a mystery that was not solved. So, I have to explain a little bit about it. In the mystery, a woman... Ooh... Okay, I'm fine. I'm okay. So, in the mystery, a woman comes to Nero Wolfe to find out who's been sending her sending defamatory letters about this woman to her clients. Now, Nero Wolfe really doesn't want to take the mystery, but then he never really does want to take the mysteries. He's, like I said, I think he's like a typical person who's like, doesn't really want to do any work. So, you know, he grudgingly agrees to see this woman. And so, shortly after he agrees to see this woman, he has two other women come over who work for her, and basically to interview them to find out what they know about these defamatory letters. And while they arrive a little bit late, and he starts working with his live-in chef on corned beef hash, on creating the perfect corned beef hash, and he's having, you know, both of them are having difficulties making the perfect corned beef hash. You know, it's a problem. Well, one of the women, you know, basically when Archie after introducing the women, one of them follows him, and, you know, says, you know, I heard you're having some problems with this. Have you tried pig chitlins? And, you know, she explains kind of a complex process involving pig chitlins and corned beef hash, which Nero Wolfe had never tried before, and they end up spending a good chunk of the time making corned beef hash with pig chitlins. Now, and it turned out to be a success. Now, shortly after this happens in the book, the woman that initially hired them is murdered. And Archie, just pretty much out of curiosity, does end up attending her funeral, and he finds at the funeral these black orchids that could only have come from Nero Wolfe, it's basically he has the only type of black orchids in existence. So it could only come from Nero Wolfe, and in addition to that, he sent a nice note. Now this is completely out of character for Nero Wolfe. And that's kind of the mystery that's left unanswered in the book. And Archie himself, who is not just the helpful detective, but also the narrator of the stories, he, you know, basically says, I have no idea, here's a couple of my solutions to this, but none of them are really very satisfactory. So, that's essentially what happens in the book. If you've already read the book and we're just waiting for the solution, I'm sorry to have bored you, but, yeah, kind of have to explain what's going on to explain the solution. So, I think it's all to do with the corned beef hash. I think Nero and Wolfe have been struggling with the problem of how to make the perfect corned beef hash, the perfect food. Well, not the perfect food, but, you know, the perfect corned beef hash, which has always been a bit of a problem, cooking-wise. And through almost sheer happenstance, someone who had the solution to that problem was brought to his attention, you know, by a woman whose case he didn't want to take in the first place. And then she ended up being murdered. And I think from Nero Wolfe's point of view, he owed her a favor for introducing him for essentially giving him the solution to what was a terrible problem of cooking for pretty much anyone who cooks. And so, out of a debt of gratitude to this person who ended up being murdered, he gave her basically the rarest orchids he had at her funeral. So that's kind of my solution. It fits in perfectly with Nero Wolfe's personality, who's tends to be kind of gruff and only really concerned about, you know, orchids and foods and books. And yeah, I think it's... Anyway, that's my solution. We'll leave you with a lovely view of Jacob pretending to be a detective overlooking of Victorian London. Nero Wolfe is the one in New York. Let me know what you think about pretty much everything in the video. Whether Nero Wolfe would like video games, what you think of my solution about black orchids, and all that. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.